Hi everyone, it's Nicole here for Honeybee Stamps, and this is Party Animal Week at Honeybee, where we're focusing on all the adorable animals that there are in the Honeybee Stamps collection. I'm going to be using Pinky the Pig and some circle dies to create an inner tube and then this great ocean borders background to make a swimming pool, so it looks like Pinky the Pig is relaxing in the pool with a cool drink, her goggles, and some little splashes. Super fun. Gonna do a little no-line coloring with the pig, the little hair bows, and the water splashes in this Pinky the Pig stamp set. So I'm going to stamp these images with Fade Out ink first. Instead of stamping the goggles or the cup separately, I went ahead and stamped those directly onto the pig image to reduce the amount of layers that I'm going to have for my card. And then I'm going to take Tea Rose and Flesh Color Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers and color in the pig. These two colors are my favorite color combination for pigs. I think it gives a much more realistic color than super pink markers might give. I have stamped these images on Bristol Smooth cardstock. This is the only cardstock that I love for using my zig markers. I've mentioned this many times, but I always like to mention it just in case you maybe have the markers and you haven't loved the results. I encourage you to give the Bristol Smooth cardstock a chance because the markers blend like butter on it and you get fantastic results. She's starting to come alive here as I get more and more color added to this sweet little image. And then for the hooves, I'm going to just pull in a little light brown as opposed to doing them all pink. I kind of considered doing some different kind of colors of pink and things, and I decided not to. So I'll come back to that here in just a second. I was still contemplating what color exactly I wanted to use there. I knew I wanted something a little different than the rest of the pig, but not super brown or gray or anything like that. The hair bows are a combination of the red marker and pink flamingo, so they're kind of a pinky red, which works great for Pinky the Pig. The nostrils on the pig I added a little mid-brown to and just kind of blended with that tea rose marker. And here's that light brown that I'm going to blend out. I started blending it out with Flesh Color and I did not like that as well. I think it really gives it a yellowish tint. So I went ahead and went in with Tea Rose for a little bit more of a pink tint to that area. I'm going to do the goggles in turquoise green and green shadow. I want the part that goes over the eye to be green shadow mostly. We will come back after we've die cut this image and add in the eyes with a couple of markers before finishing the goggles with glossy accents. The water droplets are colored with cobalt blue and light blue. This is going to match the colors we'll be using to do a little embossed resist for the ocean borders background. And I also opted to make the drink blue. I kind of thought I might do a yellow, and so I had grabbed that, but I ended up just going over it and coloring in the liquid and the cup with my blue markers, the straw with the red markers. We're going to just trace around the ice cubes in the cup, and I even traced the shape with my blue marker. And then I'm not going to add any color to that at all so that we keep those cute little ice cubes in the cup. I've die cut the images now with the coordinating Pinky the Pig dies. I've drawn in the black portion of the eye, the pupil there, with my black marker, and I'll add highlights with my white marker here in a second. I'm going to die cut any multiple images since I did 2 hair bows and I did multiple splashes. So I'm grabbing all of those pieces and getting that all die cut so I have everything ready to go. Now there is not an inner tube shape or die, I'm going to create my own with nesting circle dies. You could do this with pretty much any type of circle die. I'm going to use the double stitched circles from Honeybee. We're going to use the second largest and then the second smallest. There are 5 sizes of circles in this set, and I'm going to use 2 of them, one in the other, to create an inner tube for my design. Again, we're going to die cut this from Bristol smooth cardstock because I'm going to color in that inner tube with Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers to match the rest of the coloring on this card. So I've temporarily taped these 2 dies in place with a little post-it tape and then run them through my die cutting machine, and there is my little inner tube. It doesn't look like much until you tuck the pig in it, and you can kind of get an idea of what this is going to look like. Let's go ahead and color this in. I picked some green markers. I thought that they would offset the pig and the blue of the water that we're going to do here in a little bit for the background really nicely. Plus, our inner tube is actually going to serve as a place to stamp our sentiment. Because we're stamping and embossing the background and doing embossed resist, there's not a super great place to add a sentiment. You could always add a banner or a strip of cardstock with the greeting, or even stamp the greeting on the inside. But one of my favorite things to do is find a fun and unique area on my card to add a sentiment. And in this case, with the Ham It Up stamp set from Honeybee that coordinates with Pinky the Pig. It can go with lots of things, but it's definitely meant to work with the pig, either die cut or the stamp set. You can mix and match the sentiment to build it to say exactly what you want it to say. Now remember that these markers stay wet a little longer. You might want to hit the inner tube with a heat tool first, or do what I did, set it aside while you stamp your background, and then you can come back to it and stamp it with our sentiments here in a minute. So while that ink is drying, I've got a piece of just regular Neenah smooth white cardstock that I am stamping with a clear embossing ink using that ocean border background. I'm going to sprinkle on my white embossing powder all over the surface of this, and this is much larger than the A2 size card base, but I tend to like to start with a bigger piece of cardstock and trim it down. That way I can see exactly what I want to use. And don't have to worry about getting it stamped perfectly, especially some of the area along one of the edges didn't stamp, and that way I can just trim that part right off. So once this is all heat set, I want that to cool. I don't want to ink over hot embossing powder. It's cooled a little bit, and I'm going to take these ink blending brushes and some dye inks and apply these 2 colors of ink to my background. There's kind of an aqua color and then a darker blue color. And we're gonna just work these colors in until we get a beautiful seamless blend. And you can see that embossed resist take shape. I wanna build the intensity, so I'm definitely gonna be using that darker blue color more. But once I kind of get it the way I want it to look and the colors are blending nicely, I'm going to go ahead and trim this down. This background is going to measure 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. And instead of centering it in the middle of my white top fold card base, I'm going to shift it over to the right and leave the white strip on the left and the bottom edge, which you'll see here in a minute. This is a great time now. I want the edges of my card to be darker. So I'm going to go again with my blending tool around the edges with my darkest color of ink. And then I'm going to buff any ink that's sitting on top of the embossed areas off with a dry paper towel. Taking my inner tube in my MISTI now, I'm going to start building my sentiment one phrase or word at a time. Because it's full, this Ham It Up stamp set is full of different phrase stamps. Part of them I will stamp and then I'll just kind of keep moving around the circle. Because this is in a circular shape, I find it's much easier to stamp them individually instead of trying to line them all up and stamp them all together. That just is what works best for me. So I started at the end. I love that it says "so much." My sentiment's going to read, "This little piggy misses you so much." I think that's super, super fun. I am heat setting these as I'm moving along. And I'm curving some of the longer phrases just a little bit in my MISTI. The only two phrases I actually ended up curving just a little bit to follow the natural line of the inner tube better is "so much" and "this little." So the phrase at the beginning and the phrase at the end. I also didn't end up coloring all the inner tube when I first colored it, but as I get to putting my card together, I realized I really needed to color the rest of it because it wasn't going to hang off quite as much as I thought. I didn't color it all because I thought part of it would be hanging off, but it's actually not going to, so I'm going to need to add a little more color to that. So here's kind of what it's going to look like. I've got most of my components ready to go. Let's go ahead and add the rest of the color for that inner tube. Part of it I will be trimming off. And I want to pop the inner tube up to give it a little bit more depth and dimension, but I want part of the pig to be laying flat against the card like she's lounging there in her inner tube. So the inner tube itself will be popped up, but the pig is going to be, the part that's not her head, her body, is going to be glued directly to the background. So I'm going to glue her head first to the inner tube. We're going to flip that over and we're going to add foam adhesive squares all the way around the inner tube. These are pretty low dimension, or not very high dimensions, so they'll be nice and low. It's still going to fit in an envelope really well, but you still get that little bit of dimension. We're going to pop her legs up so that the foam squares are underneath that. Pull the backing paper off all of these and then pop it along the right side of our swimming pool background. We've got hair bows to glue in place at each of her ears, which adds such a fun, cute little touch. These are so, I love all the little accessories. And remember, you can mix and match accessories from any of the critters, any of the animal stamp sets with one another. So if you like something from this stamp set and want to use it with the mouse, you totally can. I added the splashes, I added glossy accents to the splashes and to the goggles. I'm going to adhere my background now to my card base, leaving that space along the left edge and the bottom as I talked about earlier. And then I'm going to add finishing details with some of the Honeybee Stamps Dew Drops in Mojito. So that's going to be these little water droplets throughout my card design. And then at the end of the sentiment, after the word much, we're going to take a Honeybee Stamps acrylic heart in a red hot color and add that to the end of the sentiment. I've mentioned this many times, but Honeybee Stamps has some of the best embellishments out there. If you love little teeny tiny embellishments like I do, they've got all kinds of fabulous sequins and dewdrops and acrylic pieces. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this Pinky the Pig swimming pool card featuring Honeybee Stamps and Dies. The supplies I used are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Please be sure to visit the Honeybee blog for more information. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.